I'm sorry, I have to start my cheat sheet time to time because there's a lot of thoughts here which I prepared, but just not to get lost with all the thoughts which are coming from the experts. But there is a lot of dilemmas about how many service centers we have in Hungary. A lot of studies. I truly believe we are more than 200. But because we are more than 200, and it's more than 20 years old sector in Hungary, there's a natural way of, to believe that the service centers should provide something more valuable on our own ground. Now, that's the natural progression when it comes to the life cycle of a center. That is why today, as for those who already joined us before, you probably know that we like to talk with no taboos. We like to talk openly. It's a chat, it's not really a typical panel. So we will have a great discussion. And questions may come up, obviously, as you feel so. So we will try to address those, manage those, and so on. And because the topic is very interesting, to me at least, and I hope to all of you, because otherwise we will not be so many here, we have experts from various industry segments leading, managing, or participating in shared service centers. So I will hand over to our experts to introduce themselves in 1 minute. I start with you, John.
Do I need the microphone?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure if this is working, but I'll speak loudly anyway. So my name's John Ford, and I'm the managing director of a company called GoTo here in Hungary, which up until 2 weeks ago was called Log Me In. So I'm sure you've heard of Log Me In, and now you've heard of GoTo as well. I'm also the managing director of a sister company called LastPass. So we split off LastPass as a separate company. I'm very pleased to be here.
Thank you, John. Sziasztok. Morning, everyone. My name is Praveen Anthony. I am from IBM. In IBM, I used to manage the HR Shared Service Center up until last year. And in my current role, I lead transformation and automation for IBM HR globally. That's my role. Thank you.
Thanks, Praveen. Miki Kotsor, my name. Hey, everyone. I'm representing Thermo Fisher Scientific, and I'm leading the shared services here in Budapest. The site has been established like 3 years ago, so pretty young compared to some of my colleagues. And we are the world leader in serving science, if you would know.
Good morning. My name is Károly Kodai. I work for Citi, or some of you may know it's a Citibank. Within Citi, I am leading the Solution Center in Budapest. And I also have another role. I'm the global engineering lead within our network services department. Yeah, yes, that's the Solution Center. Yeah.
So, thank you very much. Can you hear me well? Or can you hear me well? Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me online? I can't see the answer, so probably yes. If not, then please let Timea know. So the first tricky question, because I think as many shared service center experts I would ask, the answer would slightly differ. What do you think? What is, in your opinion, the definition of high value services, and how shared services may stand out of the crowd? Károly, maybe you.
This one works as well. Ooh. Sorry. So I've got my own, definition, yeah, and I approach it from two different angles. One is, and it will be a bit abstract, yeah, but I'll get back to that. One is that a unit or a function is more value added or more high value if it contributes more to the company's strategic goals, yeah. Or you can also think about it as an investment, and you get higher return on your investment. The reason why I do like this abstract view is because value change over time, yeah, and that's an important. So first of all, to me, high value isn't that we have units that aren't high value and units that are high value. You are somewhere, along the spectrum, and that somewhere can change a lot, and you need to be appreciate that, because a strategy may change and technology may make certain areas even irrelevant.
Okay.
Well, from an HR standpoint, if you look at servicing your employees, what we define as high-value services is purely based on the enhancing of the experience of the employees. So any activity, any task that enhances the experience from what it was before, that we would consider as a high-value task. So when you typically automate, you automate repetitive tasks, but you continue to enhance the rest of the tasks that will further add value and enhance the experience of the employees. That's what we would define as high-value services from an HR standpoint.
John.
So my view would be slightly different. And that would be that what is high value to one person or one area or one country might not be high value to another area. So just kind of sitting where we are here in Hungary, we have like a finite population. So we have a finite set of resources. So my view would be, let's make sure we get the very, very best for all of our people. So let's kind of upgrade to the maximum. And we do that by concentrating on quality rather than quantity, so rather than looking at the volume of transactions and how someone else can drive out cost by executing a high quantity at a lower cost. For us, our standpoint is let's kind of raise the quality because we only have a finite limited pool of resources. So that's what I would say is kind of upping the quality.
Pretty much a mixture of everyone. So I'm gonna steal all your thoughts. But in reality, just from a pragmatic perspective, our aim is to serve the customer every minute in a better shape and form and increase quality. So to me, from a pragmatic point of view, if we continue doing the same and in the same manner and at the same speed, that's not high value or not value. But once we are changing processes, once we are bringing in, whether you call it automation or a different approach, which is going to derive into more value for the customer, then that's already value add to me. So to me, I would be surprised if there would be any shared services around the patch who wouldn't be a high value or a value creation organization, because that's the whole purpose for me, at least, behind the shared services.
So what are the high value services at Thermo Fisher? So what are you particularly proud of?
From that concept, what I've been describing, all our 600 employees are what they are doing, and that's really true. If you want to go into what's specific, what's not the ordinary kind of scope that we have, then there is R&D in the IT space. There are special services that we are providing to our customer who are PhD biologists who really know stuff about certain instruments, about certain processes that they are helping clinics, researchers, etc. We have that in Hungary as well, but the majority is really customer service finance, and again there working directly with the customer and making it more smoother standard is kind of the value add to me. From a Thermo Fisher perspective, we are a very unmature company from that perspective. We are not a global company yet. It's a huge company, FTSE top 100. But even though it's big, it's still kind of a family business, and globalizing and standardizing it is key.
Thank you. Carol, I looked recently at your service portfolio when I looked at the Citibank shared service or services, I think it's called service center portfolio. And there are some really amazing roles there, which I have to be honest, I have no idea what stands behind them and what kind of skill set or whatsoever is required. So for example, like market, sorry, I need my pushka. It's market quantitative analysis, or okay, cybersecurity we heard about, but yeah, market quantitative analysis. What are you doing there?
So we've got a variety. Let me start. We've got a variety of different functions. Yeah, we have more than 20 different MQA, or the quants are one. We mentioned cybersecurity, etc. And in terms of what we do can be very different, and in terms of what the skills required can be different. So MQA in particular, they are creating mathematical models. So you will have PhDs in mathematics mostly, and the developers. Yeah, cyber again is a big space. So in terms of what we do, from operation to R&D engineering, from investigative services to deployment. We do a variety of things, but we do have, some of these teams are smaller, some of them are a bit larger. MQA is, a smaller unit, if you will. And we only have, 3 of those units in the world. And some of them are larger, like our finance team, which is multiple hundred people. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you are not the only one on the market actually performing similar analysis, but and I think we are very proud, like Morgan Stanley as well as BlackRock performing many others, but it's a limit, it's relatively limited scope, right, within Hungary. And the question is, and I think the question will be later, the end of what can we do in such space? What more can we do? So Praveen, as an HR is a great territory for transformation. I'm sure a lot of opportunities. And recently I read a study prepared by IBM. I think it's called HR 3.0. Why it's 3.0, maybe you can tell, but it was an amazing study. So how IBM, or actually how great transformation initiative or value can be provided within HR?
Sure. I think HR 3.0 seems like a long time ago. Of course, a little bit of background why the industry came up saying that it's HR 3.0. The 1.0, we believe from an industry HR standpoint, it was the industrial era where you had focus on processes, administration, setting up the job types, etc. Then came the HR 2.0, which is the age of the internet, which was focused on shared services, process excellence, center of excellences, etc. And then what we then called in the last few years from an industry standpoint, HR 3.0 was predominantly focused on getting HR as a function into the next stage of the digital era, which focused on personalization of the HR services to the employees in the organization or the customers that you service, cognitive services, as well as everything that you did in the digital era, like I spoke in the earlier point, was focused on the employee experience. And that transformation we started a few years ago, and we've now moved out to the next stage of that transformation, but specific to the 3.0, where we focused on systems, processes, and people. All the transformation had to go hand in hand. And when you talk about technology transformation, it was about moving away from, if you talk about HR, moving away from systems of record, which was the HR systems, and getting into what we called as systems of engagement. And we deployed core technologies that enhance the employee experiences across the world, so that the experiences are consistent. So that's why the technology played the role. The second one, obviously, we went simplified the processes, made them consistent, standardized, centralized where it was needed. And then we look at the personalizing of the experience to the individual needs of the employees, which was not the case before that digital. The outcome, of course, like I said, it absolutely enhanced the experience of the employees and managers that we serve. It made us more efficient. Obviously, we did gain significant efficiencies across the globe with transformation as well as automation. And here now we are to the next stage, like we're today talking about high value services, is same thing that we focused as well within HR, as to how do we take the existing services a step higher so that the value to the employees continue to be delivered. That's what I would say as HR 3.0.
It's an amazing journey, by the way. And how much of that was covered out of Budapest, just roughly?
Well, we do have global centers, delivery centers globally, and each center has its own capabilities. In Budapest, our center services payroll, employee data management, contact center, and it's mostly focused on, because of the language capabilities, we provide services across EMEA. So I would say overall, from a service center standpoint, it definitely added about 20% of the services. The efficiency gains, if you look at a global rate.
Thank you. So John, now that you mentioned that you are no longer log me in, but GoTo, first of all, congratulations for that. It's an amazing branding campaign, by the way. I face you everywhere, literally. So, but that's really, actually, it's a great experience because I think it's an amazing marketing campaign, branding campaign to understand that you are really GoTo. But when we talk about GoTo, and I need my pushka again, I'm sorry, because I read that basically through the change, I read about your CEO's latest statement, where he mentioned that GoTo is to strengthen and invest in your flexible work enablement portfolio in the two lines of business. What does that mean? What is the flexible work enablement portfolio?
Okay, so just in a nutshell, we create software to help people work remotely. So we create software products to connect people securely and then support them. So bearing in mind that actually even before the pandemic, some people were always working remotely. I would say in IT, I've always worked in IT. We've always had 20%. You always worked at least one day. I can tell you, I worked literally from the beach in 1996. So
which one? Which beach?
That's my secret. I don't want to get found out. Down in Sussex in England. So really what's changed is the technology. So it's easier now. You know, we have bandwidth, we can share images, we can share video, we can support. And of course, the pandemic accelerated because everyone was working remotely for 2 years. So we kind of now, if we're in the service sector, we know that we can provide service productively, remotely, if necessary. So really what we've done at GoTo with the rebrand is we've just made it more simple. We used to have like 20 products and half of them did the same thing and they all had different names. So now we've just simplified it to one application, 2 products, just to make it really simple.
Very much customer focused then for the future era.
We don't want to confuse our customers too much. We want to give them what they need in order to work effectively remotely. And we're not saying that all our customers will always be remote, but we recognize that post-pandemic, you know, lots of people will, at least some of the time, work remotely.
I guess knowing your company by now and not GoTo but log me in, you are the first one actually, even the service centers going to completely remote environments. So to me, it sounds like you're actually supporting what you are believing in truly, because you yourself work remotely completely as a company.
Definitely. So this is probably the 3rd time this year I've come into the Belvaros. I never, ever come into the office. We do have an office. It's a really cool office. And we just use it for a different purpose. So we use it as a meeting space. We use it as a collaboration space for design workshops, because some things are easier face-to-face. You know, if you need to have a discussion or an argument or basically design a new workflow or a new product, that's easier face-to-face. But at any given time, I'd say 95% of our people are actually doing their work remotely. And bear in mind that a lot of our people are software engineers. Software engineers tend to be quite introverted. They like to just get in their space and don't interrupt me, leave me alone, I just want to code. That's a gross generalization, I know, but it kind of really works for them. And then if they want to come in, so I have a team that's based in a few people in Page, a few around Pest-Medje. They come in maybe once or twice a month together to have some social time, to brainstorm through any issue resolution that might have come up since they last met. So it's a remote-centric hybrid approach.
Thank you. So we step forward when it comes to skills. Basically, we'll talk a little bit about the skills required to perform the special activities or value services in the centers. And the question is to all of you, but I will start with Károly perhaps at the beginning. So what kind of enhanced skills are required to perform real high value services? So Károly, that was a great example of market quantitative analysis, as an example, right? So do you hire talent from outside or do you, prepare people as well? Of how do you shoot for the talent for this kind of roles?
So obviously each and every function require different set of core skills. Yeah. So as we mentioned, MQA requires typically mathematical background, as well as, we have software developers there with a mathematical background. And we have, as I mentioned, other functions, financial background, etc. So one of the key things which I wanted to mention is those skills, those subject matter expertise to be top class. Yeah, because as an engineering lead, if I take my other hat, I've got teams all over the world. Yeah, so I can make a decision where I hire. Is it Budapest? Is it London? Is it New York? So you have to be, first of all, very good at what you do. Yeah. In terms of generic skills, I would mention one thing is continuous learning, because that's the only way to keep up these days. Where do we get talent? This is a variety of things. Typically, high value added function require a lot of SME skills. So typically we get them from the market, if you will. Yes, we do a lot of internal development. Half of our open position actually is filled internally, and this through continuous development. But you need to have those core skills for that function. And we also invest and work with universities. Yeah, so the typical 3 areas.
Thank you. So Miklós, in the pharma business, I would say that probably in Hungary, we have quite a strong pharma business, a lot of talent, right, on the market, on various skills. So when you approach people to your business, is it where you are getting the talent from, or is there any other way, the way you're hunting or developing talent?
We usually go to Citi and get the best people. No, in reality, it's now turning the corner, so it might be the other way around by now. But no, but first of all, the given skills we need to have, so that's a must. But I think that's absolutely available on the market. Where we are struggling a little bit, if we combine certain special skills with some special language knowledge as well. So like Italian and French speaking biologists who have 35 years of experience, that's a pretty niche market, I would say. So we were struggling with some of those roles. But in general, what's key for us is language knowledge, especially in the customer care area. And we've been discussing that on some forums as well already, that there are a few languages where it's a little bit more challenging to hire. And I think the other one, what Karen mentioned as well, especially for a growing center, and I think many of us are in a growing stage, is that how we bring in talents that have a future as well, whom we can move into roles after 2-3 years into some different roles while educating them. So therefore, we need to be very, very cautious. What's the talent they really have? And the other one, and probably I should have been starting with that. We are really hiring for the attitude, because I believe if that's right, there is a lot of things you can learn. If that's not okay or okay-ish, then it's going to be a very, very tough journey, and then probably it's not going to end.
And do you have any specific upskilling programs? So have you designed already? Are you thinking about initiatives like this?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually happening. So there is a lot of, we have a learning and development team who helps a lot in terms of upskilling as well. But then there is also collaboration between different sites, helping each other understanding. And the great thing is setting up different supporting enabling teams like automation team and process improvement teams. And we have all that in the center, working together with those different experts working together, and they really learn from each other, and that helps a lot to improve.
Thank you. So Praveen, we talked about the new norm a lot nowadays, actually, and the new norm in the industry, the new norm, the way we are working now. So from HR requirements, I would imagine that the HR as a service function is changing dramatically because of that as well. But you talked about upskilling talent within HR, and you talked about transformation. So what kind of transformation? So is it, you talk about human transformation. What else is there when it comes to talent, skill, or skill set required within HR on a long run?
That's, I think, in continuation of the answers by my colleagues here, panelists rather, the skill set in terms of what we needed from a transformation standpoint was one of the key pillars when we actually started the transformation journey. So if you look back 4, 5, 6 years ago, when we decided this is the transformation journey that we wanted to go after, we had 4 areas that we had, 4 pillars rather, from a framework standpoint. One was in terms of simplification. Second was using automation to eliminate or reduce the repetitive tasks. Third was new ways of working in terms of agile skills, design thinking, etc. The 4th pillar of that whole transformation framework was actually skills. We knew that skills is going to be the most important factor from a people standpoint. If you actually go through a transformation journey, and you have to sustain that over a period of in the long run. Transformation is not a project. Transformation is a journey. So to continue that journey, you continue to have to upskill your talent. And it's, yes, it is possible to bring from the market, but we took the journey of upskilling our individuals. And so, for example, today most of our roles in our shared service center are kind of what we call as techno-functional roles. It's no longer a role that is related to a specific process. If you take, for example, payroll processing today, from a traditional payroll processing standpoint, has changed. Today they do, in terms of the payroll processing, to do validate and taxation, etc. But they also are looking at the outputs of the automated bots. They're also looking at triggering the bots when the bots fail. They're also looking at how do they enhance the output of the bots by providing feedback continuously to the developers who are developing the bots and sustain that. So that is the shift from a services standpoint that we are seeing. So today, if we have individuals with a combination of these skills, that will be a great value from a service center standpoint. And that's what we have done all along the way. If you take another example of providing customer care, we do see today customer care is being provided a lot through chats and bots, and then obviously via email and phone. In IBM, the chatbots are the primary area of support for our employees. And along that, now, once that journey has been completed, people who are actually responsible for answering phones and calls and emails are now moving into what we call as chatbot managers and content managers. So they are focused on enhancing the content of that the bots work on, rather than answering questions and emails. So that, again, there's an element of technical capabilities required, along with your functional and process knowledge that you've gained over the last 10, 12 years. And that's how we have continued to enhance the skills. And skills, not just for HR, and you mentioned about HR changing because it's a new norm. Actually, HR continues to change, even pre-COVID, even before the new norm, simply because we have to change with the changing business requirements and the changing business needs. So HR as a support function has to always be ahead of the game. And that's what we've been doing, trying to be ahead of the game and partnering with the business to ensure that the business success is met. So, and skills, to your point, is actually a key dimension of our performance management as well. So year on year, when we manage performance management every year, skills is one of the 5 dimensions that we have for all employees, not just for HR. So that's how we're focused on enhancing the skills.
So you've mentioned earlier that basically at least 20% of efficiency was generated in Budapest by this program, or by this, let's say, transformation initiative, right, journey. So in terms of the skill set in Budapest or anywhere else, do you have any specific programs for upskilling or reskilling, or is just a natural way of this transformation?
Yes, some of the process teams that are involved in the transformation, it becomes a natural way. It's a natural progression as they continue to transform. They continue to get continue to enhance their skills and move ahead. But where we also look at other skills, for example, data science is an area where in HR today plays a very important role. And data science was typically looked at as a very small function in the past in the HR organization. But today, almost every function has 1 or 2 data scientists within HR that provide a value as far as employee data is concerned, as far as our services are concerned. So that requires specific training, specific methodology, and like what Karo was saying, you get mathematicians, get statisticians, as well as experienced data scientists within the organization or from outside to continue to train your HR staff. So that is an example of where we're seeing a different approach than the regular transformation approach.
Thank you. So John, the IT business, the core IT business, right? So as a person from, I don't know much about IT, but I would imagine that within this profession, you have many different skills and skill sets required because of the complexity. So basically, how are you hunting your talent? And do you really believe, because I've heard that as well recently, that IT can be trained to anyone? It's just a question of to what degree. So what's your view?
So you probably know I studied language.
George Talpu IT and, I don't know how to translate that. George Talpalo, whatever is the best IT program.
So I actually go back to something that Nikki said, that probably the most important thing is the attitude. So if someone really wants to learn, then they will, if they really want to learn something. And I think at a young age, that's what you need to look for. And so when we hire talent, we obviously look at the skills, etc. We look at their degree. If they've got a master's in computer science, then yeah, they've got a very strong, firm basis. However, I don't just look at the degree. So I've taken degree as a requirement off every job spec, because I don't want to exclude a bunch of people just because they haven't got a piece of paper, if they have the attitude that they really want to learn and they taught themselves. Because, my degree is in German and Russian, but I taught myself to code. And so when we hire people, we look at what they did in their spare time. So we look, have you got a GitHub account? Can you show us some projects that you've been doing? Even if they've got a master's in computer science, oh, I wrote this embedded software so that my drone could take photos of the neighbor's garden during the summer holidays. Cool, that's good. So we look at, self-motivated learners. We also look at internal transfers. So when Praveen was talking about career progression, we hired, I think we filled 260 roles last year. It was pretty much a record year for us. About 50 of them were internal transfers. And to give you an example, we had a young woman who was in our facilities team. She was pretty much working on reception. Of course, we closed the office during the pandemic, so we had much less need for facilities and people on reception. So we moved her up into the talent acquisition team. And she's been doing a great job, sourcing, filtering candidates, etc. And then probably the next step on a career path, if she wants to do it, is to start looking at our content management. So a little bit like the process that Praveen mentioned with verifying, validating content for chatbots, pushing her towards a more technical path, if she wants to do it. But again, the attitude is key. We also have a program, 30 or 40 of those hires were interns. So taking interns out of college, and they provide a very good background. But of course, there's quite a lot of competition. So in IT, I would say we're software development rather than, we have a small level 2 tech support team, maybe 35, 40 people. But really, we're kind of software developers. So there is a fair amount of competition in the marketplace for that talent, but there's stuff that we can do. So we can work on hiring managers to get hiring managers to hire for talent and grow people. So rather than looking for candidates who fit 100% of the criteria, let's have 70%, and let's try and get them working, pair programming, being mentored, etc. And the other thing that we can do is kind of change the architecture of our solutions. So at the moment, I think I mentioned earlier, we had quite a few sort of legacy, very specific products. And, you know, if it's legacy technology, 20-year-old technology, a college student is not going to want to do that. Someone coming out of university is not going to have 20-year-old skills, let's face it. And they won't want to either. So we can change the technical architecture that we're working with to make it more modern, more standard, and that widens out the candidate pool that we can then address. So it's kind of on us as well, as technical architects, as hiring managers, and, you know, don't just complain to the recruitment team that you can't find the people.
So the question to all of you again. So when it comes to opportunities for Hungary in specific, for the high value add services, what's your opinion? What are our opportunities really? Miklos, maybe.
Thanks for the easy question. Happy to go first. I think, you know, my view has been, and probably it's not going to change really, that, you know, we were also talking before, is Hungary special? Are we special to any other countries? I don't think so, honestly. Probably I'm not going to be popular with that view, but I don't think we are. I think what we need to we need to make the best out of the small market that we are having here in Hungary, because it's a small on a global scale, and provide something unique. And you know, that goes back again to the willingness, the attitude, how much people do want to progress, how much they are willing to invest into that in terms of adding and making it better and looking it for smarter ways. So if we can motivate people into the direction, then that's gonna drive something different. Other than that, you know, we can compare Hungary to any of the surrounding countries, or with India, or any big countries, you know, where like the Hungarian size market is suited in one office, really. But I don't think we can give more. I don't think we can give less. But how we do it, probably this is where we can make a difference. So to me, I see there a bright future, because I see a bright future overall for the shared services industry, and we are part of it, and we just have to make the best out of it. Probably it's too general, but this is where I am.
Well, Károly, what's your opinion? What are our opportunities?
I will approach it from a different angle, if I may. So if we think about opportunities as more investment and more functions, or more companies investing in Hungary. So I think what the key will be is whether we can leverage on past success. Yeah. So when a company, or most companies, decide whether they will invest in a function here in Hungary or anywhere in the world, they obviously take a lot of things into consideration. Is it the right geography, right time zone? What about cost? Do we have the talent pool? What about risk? You know, do we have concentration risk? There is a number of things, but in my experience, two things are the key: talent pool and past experience. And any past experience, which is good, actually bring more like a magnet functions. If we do have high value functions across multiple companies, and they are bringing functions within that company, but also they are bringing functions to others. Yeah, because you know, you've mentioned quants. Yeah. Interestingly, in Hungary, we have, yes, multiple companies with operation. But if you look at globally, you know, which are where do you see more quants? You will see them in New York, in London, and interestingly in Hungary. So if something works well, and we can capitalize it, we have a bright future. Yeah.
I mean, what do you think?
From a high value services standpoint, in terms of, obviously there are opportunities, but we got to understand one thing is that today, given the current circumstances, every single task, whether it's low value, high value, is going through transformation. So even before somebody is thinking of transitioning certain set of services, as unless it's their was part of their strategic plan in the past or maybe a few years ago, could have changed now. That high value service that exists today or high-end task that exists today in a different country and not in Hungary is already under pressure to go ahead and transform itself. And then you have to then look at what is left of those tasks that will come in, and do we have the capabilities from a service center standpoint to absorb that particular task. I do believe we have, and goes back to the willingness, goes back to the skills, and we have seen that. But the second point is also in terms of when you have to bring in value-added services as well as the willingness, and do we have the skills, is the fact that what is the value add to the individual who's being part of this journey? That's also a key measure that we need to keep in mind, right? When you talk about efficiencies that we gained that has helped the company, which we have all of us done in our companies, we've also looked at what's the value add for the individual. So we've measured from a service center standpoint, if our average grade was, let's say, for example, grade 5, we've given ourselves a year as well as we went through the transformation journey and brought in certain level of efficiencies and process improvements. Did that grade of our average level of employees go up? It did go up from 5 to 5.9, 5.94, the last I saw it. So, and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time because you can't move everybody from one grade to another over a period of months. It takes maybe 18 months, 2 years as you remove or eliminate low task works and high-end works go on. You've got to move your people up the ladder, and that's the value add that the individuals look for. So that becomes also a key measure for all of us as industry leaders or service center leaders to say, how am I measuring the growth of my individuals or my team? So if both go hand in hand, I do believe that we do have the capability. Yes, it's a factor of what comes in and how much can we absorb, but we are headed in the right direction as far as I can see.
John?
Just trying to remember the question. Opportunities for Hungary. So if I sort of look at Hungary, I think there are specific sort of historical, cultural, psychological contexts which are very much in our favor. So obviously geographical. I think Roy mentioned that we're in the center of Europe, very European country. We're very, very used to over the last 200 years to being right in the center of Europe, but also the time zone halfway between India and the States. It's perfect, absolutely perfect for a global company with colleagues. I have teams in India and I have teams in America, and I can spend half the day with them and half the day with them and the whole day with my Hungarian team. So that's perfect. And
we win always, right?
So rather than, throughout history, actually the geographical position has been a bit of a disadvantage with everyone kind of invading through on their way to somewhere else. Now we can turn it to an advantage, which is great. I think also, if I look back, Hungarians have been very innovative and creative, particularly in the kind of technology engineering space. So if I look at some of the things that have been invented here or designed here, so Model T Ford, the carburetor, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, safety match, atomic power, COVID vaccine, there's a lot of stuff. So I think Hungary is very much punched above its weight in terms of technological innovation. And in our space, in software engineering, obviously it's an engineering function, it's technology, but you've got to be creative as well. You have no physical limitations when you're creating software. So it's a very creative area to work in. And I think Hungarians are pretty creative. So I think that's an advantage. In terms of the opportunities, I would say we kind of need to almost aim for an area and then build up critical mass in that area. So at I nearly said GoTo, but this is actually in the LastPass area. So anyway, at LogMeIn, ex-LogMeIn, we kind of focused on product design for LastPass. And we had only one product designer 2 years ago when I joined. Now we have nearly 40. And these are basically the people who are making sure that the software is easy to use for you. And I'm sure you share my frustration when software is difficult to use and you just don't know how to use it. So product design is probably, and user experience is just as important as the coding behind it. So we've kind of aimed for that area, put together a bit of a proposition, we've carved it out as a discrete piece of work, and then we've gradually built critical mass. And I think by giving, so in general, in my experience, Hungarians can very sort of with a lot of deliver, with a lot of commitment and dedication, deliver a discrete area with very little oversight. So I remember a few years ago, and I think some of my ex-colleagues from Vodafone will remember when we did this, we set up a tax accounting function, and we started with like 1 or 2 people, first of all, just for Vodafone Hungary. And we gradually built that into a global tax accounting team so that we got to the stage where we could show around global leaders here in Budapest and say, oh, down at that end of the room, there's more qualified tax accountants than anywhere else in the company, globally put together. So you could kind of build this critical mass and kind of drive the thin end of the wedge in, get your foot in the door, and then increase and increase until you own that function.
It's actually about the critical mass. Just pop up my mind that data analytics is really a next, I would say, step for Hungary to build, because we are not there yet. But I think it's a great potential for Hungary to do so. And training or upskilling resources on that area, I think the scale is really large of what, what can or cannot be done, really, or rather can, and what is the, within that scale of how many people could be upskilled or reskilled to that field. What's your opinion about that, or if you?
That's, and like I mentioned, data analytics and data science is an important, really important aspect of what we do in HR today. And like we said, like I mentioned, we have a specific training plan for those individuals. As far as Hungary is concerned, they are on par with the rest of the world as far as upskilling is concerned. Finding individuals who are keen to do data science is not been difficult for us. Sometimes it's just that we have a certain number of seats to fill and we've reached the max really quick. So that is definitely what I would like to say in terms of data science. There is definitely potential, and going back to the willingness and the individual capabilities, we believe that from a service center standpoint, it's something that we can absorb more and more, at least from the way I see it in HR.
So so basically you say that you are rather, at the moment you are in a reactive mode, because you are reactive in a sense that the resources might be available, but you need place to fill, basically.
Yes, I wouldn't say we're totally reactive, because when we started the transformation journey, it was more of a proactive approach. But if you look at the industry as such today, in the market as such, yes, there is a shortfall of data scientists if you have to really look outside the market and bring in at a certain salary range. And that's why typically companies are trying to enhance the skill within the organization, but there is potential in that space.
So you are all captive, mostly captive, except probably GoTo, we are providing, you are captive as well, yeah. So for the BPO providers, for example, this could be an opportunity to develop talent for data science in advance and basically sell these services for Hungary. We don't do that proactively today, to my knowledge, unless. Yeah.
So data science is, yes, one of the skills that is, in high demand globally. Yeah. And yes, it would make sense, and I think we do have the talents in Hungary. It would make sense to capitalize on it. But to John's point, you need concentration. So when you learn, for example, to drive a car, if you don't drive a car for a while, yeah, you just lose that skill. Yeah. So in order to be successful, not only we need to upskill, but we need them to be able to exercise those skills. Yeah. And that's, I strongly agree that we need concentration of need and demand, and then you can upskill. We can have tens of thousands of people with data science if they can't operate in that space, it will be useless. Yeah, so it's, there's two sides to it.
Yeah.
I think maybe, so I would look at data analytics as more of a base skill. So we take some things a little bit for granted here. So like speaking English, the fact that we expect professionals to be experts in their field and speak English well as a foreign language is actually quite a high expectation. I mean, you wouldn't have that expectation of an American accountant or developer, for example. So I think I would look at data analytics as a similar, like a base function, because we have fairly good mathematics skills, I would say, in general. We all wonder why we're studying mathematics at school, so maybe this is why. But I would put it as a kind of a hygiene factor, because then that could be spread across the whole workforce, and that would give us like an extra arrow in a quiver, so to speak.
Interesting. So a little bit provocative questions to you all. What is your opinion that by providing high value services in service centers, are we taking away or stealing basically the talent from Hungarian startups?
I'll go first since I've got the microphone. So in our view, so I mean, Log Me In is probably the most famous Hungarian startup, and of course we've grown to be global. What we've seen is as we've grown, and we're not really a very big company, so we're 3,000 people globally, about 20% of that is in Hungary, so we're not actually that big. Most people who come to us come from bigger companies and they want to move to a smaller company. Most people who leave us go to a startup. So there are several startups, TrueMotion, Shaper, Genesis, Xively, Google, all of these were started from Log Me In. So these are all startups born from Log Me In. So I wouldn't say we're taking talent from startups. If anything, we're like donating talent.
Yeah.
I'm very much in that field, and we see people joining as freelancer joining our company, especially in the IT area, and then they decide to go back, and then they decide to come back. So that's kind of a journey. And to me, there is the old joke that CEO is talking to the CFO, and the CFO is already investing into people. And what if they leave after a few years and investing hell of a money? The CEO is asking, what happens if we don't invest? So that's the point, I think. So you all need to invest, we all need to go for it. And yes, I mean, there are people moving around the different companies, but then at the end of the day, they do learn there something new. And then, they might be joining different companies or our company, I don't mind, but whoever joins Thermo Fisher, I want to make sure that they grow, and there's going to be a benefit to others. And I think many of us have the same mindset, and therefore the talent pool is going to be scaling up and increasing in terms of knowledge, the experience, and therefore the market is going to be stronger and we are going to be stronger. So
you are also an opinion that we are donating talent to startups?
Well, I mean, both ways, yeah, absolutely.
So in my view, it's where it's demand, you will get supply. So more demand will give you more supply, which is key to sustainability of an operation of any kind. Yeah. So I think personally, this is good. So when around 15 years ago, when I started to build my little engineering team, within a few years, there were more engineers in my team in that field than any of the largest system integrator company. And yes, this question came up, is it sustainable, etc. But then, more companies came with the same demand of skill. And I think it would be great because now we have a pool of people with different variety of experience, etc. I think whatever is good for a profession is good for the companies. So competition is good.
No specific for HR.
No, yeah. It's not the field that you want to compete in, so happy that way. But I guess there's advantage both ways. There's talent moving both ways, to startups and from startups. But I think the individuals joining startups are, of a particular character with a lot of risk-taking capabilities and have free will. The culture of the company plays an important role to attract talent for startups. Most large organizations have a certain set culture, which you kind of have to get used to. But startups probably it's a bit more flexible from a culture standpoint. So that's why it has to attract a certain set of individuals with a certain set of mindset. So I think it just works both ways.
Thank you.
And part of that is you have to be ready to work twice as much for half as much money.
Probably one more sentence I would add as well is that there is a lot that goes back to the education as well. Because as discussed, we are going to scale up people and develop, but the higher you start, the less job companies have. So therefore, certainly we have also a job in working together with universities, as many of the companies are doing, and realizing that there is a need. I think that's going to be critical from a Hungarian perspective as well, how we can scale up education, because then you don't have to start, at the very low end.
Okay, then, well, the next question is related to a secret of a company which is deciding to move core business activities to a service center. So what's the secret? Why companies are moving core business activities to a service center? You stop, Praveen. It's your choice now.
So it's a difficult question. For me, if I look at why we transition the core activities to Budapest, going back to the language skill, is for us from a strategic location standpoint, language is the primary factor why we move work to Budapest. And then, of course, all the technical skills and next technical capabilities, be it data science, be it automation skills, be it HR process skills. That's the second or third reason why we then move work here. But again, going back to the earlier point that I mentioned today, if we are deciding that core tasks which were in the past, let's say contact center management or customer service was not a core activity, and core activity was payroll processing. So, but we moved that as well here. Now we're looking at, from an HR standpoint, the activities that the HR partners are performing within the specific countries where they are providing strategic discussions, getting involved in strategic discussions with the business, providing strategic direction to the business, etc. Some of those activities are going through a transformation, like I said already, because of the circumstances we are under. And we have to now see with that transformation going on, we are again seeing opportunities for transformation, even in those core business activities, which were core business about 6 months ago. And we see there are actually activities that can be further transformed. And then what is left, we got to bring that here. That's the journey now we're currently going through. And this is the next phase of the digital journey from an HR standpoint, which is what we're calling as the digital twins. And you've probably heard that in the industry already. And again, from an IBM HR standpoint, we're fairly advanced as far as that capability is concerned. And we're looking at, again, leaving the value-added skills for the individuals to perform with the businesses, and the tasks that can be actually then either automated or moved to the service center, then we move that here. So that's the journey now.
So what's the secret for Thermo Fisher to move R&D roles here by French and I don't know what speaking special engineers?
I think it's all about that the company understands that that's basically the only way for Thermo Fisher to succeed, and probably that's too harsh, but we are a company of more than 100 small family businesses. We have more than 100 ERPs. So talking about data science, that's great, but let's first understand what our data is. So this is why I didn't comment on that one, but certainly we are getting there. So for us, shared services is really about getting processes together, standardizing, understanding what the other business is doing at all, and then mapping that together and coming up with a global approach. global process ownership. That was a word that for 2 years ago no one thought about or understood at all in our company. Now we are getting into that and trying to set it up. It's a long journey, but that's the real value add. So if a company is thinking about setting up a shared service because of there is some labor arbitrage, and that's the only value they see, they shouldn't do that. That's my advice. But if they think about the future and all that, what we are already talking about, then that's the reason, and this is why we have the shared services here set up as well.
Károly.
So if the question is about what makes Citi invest even more in Budapest, how we can sustain, I would think, or for any center to that matter, my personal opinion is we are talking about high value added functions. Secret is when you add even more value than what's expected at high level. That's how small teams grew. That's how a team of 6 became a team of 700 finance, and so on and so forth. So even shoot above your weight. I think that's the secret.
John, any comment?
Yeah. So I agree with Mickey that basically for core services, that standardization of a process, which often involves transformation. So if you're consolidating, local operating entities from various countries into a shared service center, it gives you an opportunity to improve the process, transform it, standardize it, and kind of do things right everywhere. So do things correctly, but that's not necessarily value add. I think the secret sauce is over deliver, a bit like Károly said, under promise, over deliver. And the labor arbitrage actually works in our favor because people expect what they pay for. So if they're getting some cost out and they're standardizing their process and it costs less than it did before, and then they get better, it's a bit like, when you go to a shop and you've decided to buy something and then it turns out that it's akciós and you get 20% off. It's like,
and yeah, you buy 2 free. And it's no longer akciós then so much. Yeah. Well, thank you. My last very provocative question to you, and the reason I'm asking this question is because the next business outlook, which we are going to prepare with HOA, will be about this topic in particular, and that's the future of shared services in Hungary in 10 years' time. What's your view? What's the future of shared services in general in 10 years' time, but what's the future in Hungary? Miklós?
It's bright, that's the only answer I can give, and that really covers it in my view. I think, we often say there are 2 types of companies existing, companies who already have shared services and who are about to launch a shared service. And then that's going to be, become one at the end of the day. I think consolidating all these efforts for the reason that we are talking about, that's everyone is going to realize that there is value add in terms of, and the company as such can get value add out of that. So I would be surprised if anywhere shared services industry would be declining in the coming few years, and then Hungary is part of that. So very, very positive.
It's bright, yeah. So let's start with that. So it has to be, in order to be sustainable, we have to move up to the value chain. Yeah. So we have to have more complex roles and deliver better quality and more complex things. Yeah.
So when you say we have to, that's we need to versus we have to. So why the have to?
Yeah, because that's what I believe longer. If you're asking the market and what's my opinion about sustainability of shared services, that's the only way I can see it being successful. Yeah. There are a certain amount of people who can work, and we are competing with the rest of the world. So we have to be better.
I would say it's really bright. And I'll talk about from my personal experience standpoint. I obviously come from India. I've been here 9 years. And I've seen the journey in the last 9 years in our service centers, with every single challenge, with every single opportunity that as the company changed, we have continued to deliver, and we continue to change with the requirements of the business, with the requirements of the organization, continue to upskill the individuals within the organization. And you can't do it alone, because you got to do it collectively. That's what we're able to do. We've been able to change and transform the HR functions, the individuals involved in it, and do what we're doing today. Today, I just spoke about the digital twin is probably at the highest level in terms of transformation, in terms of next level technologies coming in from an HR standpoint or anywhere else in any other process. And a lot of those capabilities from a development standpoint are being delivered out of Hungary from our CIO organization. A lot of our personalized chat response capabilities are being delivered out of our service centers here in Budapest. So that gives me the confidence to say we have changed with time, we've been able to deliver to the expectations, and I don't see any reason why that shouldn't continue given the past experience that we have had. So I do believe that the future, I can't really say, okay, 10 years, but definitely in the short term, 5-7 years is definitely great. It's a great potential there.
Yeah, so 10 years is quite a long time, so usually you don't think so far ahead. And my first reaction is, whoa, who knows? Anything could change in 10 years' time, so I think we're at that stage in world history where, there's probably a change on the horizon. So China, in 10 years' time, I would say China will have probably overtaken America as the main global power.
In what way?
So, 10 years seems like a long way out, and there are geopolitical changes happening, some a lot closer to home, of course. So it seems like, things could be radically different. And so if I follow that path, I would expect shared service centers to evolve, and to evolve more into business value add. So there's a lot of, in lean terms, if you know lean, there's business value add, there's business non-value add. And there are things that have to be done, but the customer won't pay for explicitly. And that's what shared services do to a large extent. They provide those things which have to be done, closing the books, issuing invoices, collecting debt, stuff like this. That's kind of core services. And I think we have a lot of companies here in Hungary that, a lot of companies who are active here in Hungary who would not be able to survive without their Hungarian shared service center. So I can tell you that at our company, all the T&E, travel and expenses, all done from Hungary. All the global month-end close done from Hungary. So literally, the company wouldn't be able to survive without its Hungarian shared service center. However, over the course of 10 years, I would expect things to evolve. So I would expect, RPA, automated transaction processing, to take the place of some of these core services, for maybe AI to be applied. So, we have a team that's identifying fraudulent credit card transactions. That's a prime candidate for applying algorithms and AI to be not just more efficient, but also better at identifying fraudulent credit card users. So I think it should evolve. However, if I look back 10 years ago to what we were doing, how much have we evolved since 2012? So how different are we really? I think we probably need to accelerate that evolution a little bit, which kind of goes back to Carol's point.
I think I can agree with you on that, because I'm, looking at the job portfolio on the market, there are still many jobs open, just exactly the same as I was applying to 23 years ago. So probably we should be faster in our evolution to keep our competitiveness in the region. Thank you very much for being here with us. I really enjoyed it. I hope you too. And I hope you enjoyed it as well. So I open it to questions if you have any, or any questions from the audience on the Zoom platform. Not yet. From here?
Yes. Question?
I will go around with Mike.
Thank you, and thanks a lot for the conversation. It was really, really interesting, and it was great to hear about upskilling and enabling people and investing in talent. And it reminded me that my previous manager, who was from India, by the way, and he told me once that a good leader is someone who is really enabling the people around him or her. And if we take out the leader from the equation, the micro environment around him or her, his or her team will be able to function smoothly without him or her. So my question to you would be that actually whether you agree with this, and if so, are you there? If you look at your micro environment or your own teams.
So maybe if I start, since I have the microphone, I think a leader needs to guide, provide direction, provide vision, inspiration. And so if you think about a shepherd who has, that stick with the hook on the top, the stick isn't for hitting the sheep, it's for like guiding them, for, hooking them out if they get stuck. So a leader needs to support their team, needs to remove obstacles so that the team can function, needs to kind of give them air cover so that the team can just do their job without being bothered by stuff that's going on, which might distract them, which might scare them. So I think really leadership is guiding, protecting, and enabling. Could the team function, could my team function without me? I think at the moment, probably not. But my role is to kind of grow up the next level of leaders. So the situation I'm in at the moment, I'm probably not there. However, I took a new role 6 months ago, and certainly the person who I grew up as my successor is doing a great job in my previous role. So it's kind of a bit of a cliche that we should work to make ourselves redundant. And I don't particularly want to do that, not until I'm ready to retire, but but you get the idea.
By the way, we haven't touched leadership in this discussion, and then sorry for not answering your question, but starting with something different. Leadership is critical, and we talked about data science, mathematics, technology skills, etc. Leadership is critical for this business, yeah, and that's a big topic by itself, in my opinion. But shortly is someone said that one is ready to bigger career move when your team can operate without you. Yeah, so that's where this is also a good career advice. To build up your team and to develop future leaders and make sure that they are self-contained and they can work. I would personally agree that should be the end goal.
The only sentence probably I would add to your sheep example, John, is that, I think what's important as well, when your sheeps got stuck in the mud, that you get there and help them out, either by guiding or, sometimes you just have to grab that sheep and really take it out and then move it there and then show that's the way you shouldn't do again. So I think that there is a lot involved into that as well. Specifically in Thermo Fisher, there is a lot where vice presidents, senior vice presidents are going down to the deepest level of process gaps or customer needs just to guide, because we are not set at a high standard in terms of how to operate as a global company. We need to intervene many, many times.
So following up what John, you mentioned at the end about the non-value adding task, I was really interested to see that for those non-value adding tasks, what is your approach? So you're neglecting them as a shared service center, you're automating them, offshoring them, outsourcing them. Is there any view, especially from a Hungarian market perspective?
The easy one for me is automation, standardizing, not just shipping it around the world, because then nothing is going to change, but the value is going to be if you are able to move away and eliminate that type of work.
Just to add to just on the previous point was empowering the employees before you guide them to take risks and do the right things is important. So that's when you actually, as a manager, would become redundant. So empowerment is an important point. Just to add to your point, before we get to automation, from not just specific to Hungary or any shared service center, the approach that we have in IBM is basically first look at simplification and elimination, then you look at where you can centralize, and then you look at what you can integrate between functions, between crossover with various other functions within a particular large area. And then the last area of that last step of that whole journey is automation. So we don't look at automation as a first step. It's actually the last step of that entire journey. And and again, this is not something that we learned on day one. We took, the journey took some time, and now this has become the method for us to, move work or, transition work from one place to another, or look at, eliminating certain piece of work.
I would add to that, Andras, that elimination is far more effective than automation. So one litmus test I've used is when you have approval steps in a process, which often you do, like expense claims, do you ever say no? If someone in the step never says no, then probably you don't need that step. Eliminate.
Thank you very much for the conversation. What I would like to ask is around the talent pool. You mentioned that talent pool is critical to have in the future. And we experienced it 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that big four companies lost a lot of talent pool due to the shared service market partly. And what do you do, or what your companies do to keep up or increase the talent pool or retain it as it is for the entry-level roles?
Thanks. Okay, two points on that. In terms of, one is obviously the retention, and the second is the attraction of talent into your service centers. Going back to retention, nobody wants to do what they're doing today. They don't want to continue to do that for 6 months, 8 months, and that's where the transformation journey comes into play. That's where we move them from doing what they're doing today, automating it or eliminating, and move to the next level. But the other point, going back to what I mentioned earlier, is what's in it for me as part of this journey, so that I can be a big contributor to this journey. And that's where we need to understand, as shared service center leaders, as managers, while I'm looking at the strategic goals of the organization, also am I looking at the growth of my team or the individuals within the service center. The example I gave, moving the individuals from grade 5 to grade 6, is the second point to retention. And the third, there is continuous learning. And this is where we've all talked about, in the last hour or so, that continuous learning journey has to be there. And as an organization, we got to provide them the skills and tools and learning environment for them to continue to upskill. As far as attracting talent goes, we got to look at in terms of our offering within the industry and how do we market the offerings. Today, if we want to attract talent, if I have to say we want to hire for customer service job profile, we probably have a few coming in. But if I say if I want to hire for chatbot content, which works on an AI-driven bot, then you would probably have a lot more individuals applying for it. But it's not just marketing, but that's the reality of the job roles today. So it's important to look at what is being done today and what is that you're going to develop in the future and attract talent to the development of the future products. That's the way I would say we need to kind of attract talent into our shared service centers.
Yeah, I was going to add, so for software engineers, which is a slightly different breed of people, should we say, I always use Dan Pink's three motivators of autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So basically, autonomy, let them have their space, give them enablement, empowerment, and help them to work in a self-sufficient way. So give them autonomy. Mastery, grow them, continuously develop their skills, because let's face it, no one's going to work for the same company for the rest of their life. So as an individual, as a company, as a country, continuous learning and continuous upskilling is really the only thing that will keep you competitive on the market. So just at an individual level, if you're not learning all the time, every day, then probably you're dying off in terms of your personal competitiveness. So that mastery is really important. And then purpose. So notice that there's no money here. You should kind of take the issue of money off the table if possible. Purpose is something that we've kind of struggled a little bit, to be honest, because, okay, we're not a cigarette company, you know, with all due respect, but we're not trying to really save the world. So, you know, we've tried to kind of rebrand the company as enabling the remote workforce and enabling people to work wherever they want, however they want, to enable people and companies to keep going through something like the pandemic. That's kind of as close as we can get to a purpose, I would say. But if you are in healthcare, if you're, you know, saving babies in the incubator or anything you can get to kind of develop a purpose that will really inspire people to come to work, I would say use it, because that's a real motivating factor.
Thank you.
Any other question? No?
Hello.
Good morning to everyone. When you are attracting talent, how much can you sell your culture? I mean your cooperation culture, maybe your processes, your branding, the purpose, maybe workplace aspects, your office. How much does it count?
Yeah, it still works. Okay. So for us, it is very important, yeah? And you know, obviously, I would assume for many companies, yeah. But to me, and how important it is in actual fact, many, you know, when we are looking at recruitment and sources, where you get from, especially with very specialized area, mathematicians, software developers, engineering. One of the key sources, people bringing internal referral, people bringing their network and engaging, and a big part of it is corporate culture. Corporate culture is again a big topic. It includes many aspects, including learning and development, and you know, the environment, and so on and so forth. So to me, that's typically a good sign that you know, it works, and not only it's important, but it has some meaning, because they are reaching out without us asking, actually bringing people in. Yeah, so it's an important factor.
I would just say what Károly said, it's super important to attract talent, but then even more importantly is what we've been sharing with the outside world. This is the same or even better what they are experiencing when they join. So we have to be very careful that we are selling the truth and who we are, not overselling it, because the next day they are gonna be very disappointed.
I'll just add to that. So in our culture of working primarily remotely, we need to be very transparent, because, you know, if you're a 20-something just graduated from a university, you know, maybe always working from a small room in your parents' flat isn't actually the most attractive thing. So, you know, we need to be kind of very clear that this is what we expect. However, there's a cool office near Astoria that you can come into whenever you want, because there's always plenty of space. So what I do is when I do an interview, I spend probably nearly half of it selling the company. So just being aware that everyone's competing for good talent, and if it looks like a good person in a key skill area, it's actually more important for me to sell the company to them, to get them to convince them to join, than for me to ask lots of difficult questions that, you know, because it's more of a seller's market in some cases.
Yeah, it became a seller's market now. Absolutely. Any other question?
Can I have a question from online?
Morning, thanks for the insightful thoughts. And just a quick question. There is a maybe slightly romantic notion that in collaboration, cooperation is a prerequisite to generate value, whereas we sort of live in a pandemic environment, working remotely. So any experience from the past 2 years as to how remote working impacted value generation in shared services?
Maybe I'll go first. So I think, we always view collaboration as a positive thing, but actually too much collaboration bears a cost. There's a cost to collaboration because the more amount of communication that goes on, the greater the delay in delivering. So you actually have to kind of judge what's the value of that collaboration. So I can tell you what I've done is I've basically, moved a software engineering team so that they're now a kind of isolated team that doesn't have to collaborate as much with everyone, but they can basically use, one interface to do their collaboration, and that allows the team to deliver, and that's remotely. So our remote collaboration over video conferences, I don't know about you, but I find video conferences quite tiring because, when you're in a meeting, you're not actually standing there staring at the person the whole time like you are on a screen. So what I've tried to do is actually minimize the number of video conferences that this team does so that they can just get on with their work, and then someone can collaborate and pass the message on to the team. Of course, the team, they want to meet up. So, once or twice a month, they all get together and they're spread all over the country. I think I mentioned before, they're in Pécs, Szeged, Ért. So they're not actually co-located anyway, but they can come together, but then that collaboration is more social. It's more for coffee, lunch, having a chat. So that's like our approach.
Remote work, at least in my view, brought up 3 areas that I think there's still a lot to do. One is collaboration in the remote environment. I think certain aspect of collaboration just tends to work better when it's in person. And there are more and more technologies, and we have to find better way because we will be in this hybrid world. But I think that's an area that still need more investment because from almost fully office-based environment, we went in no time to an almost totally remote. And I don't think that's an area. That's one element, and it's a very good question. But culture, as we mentioned, that's another area. And the third one is in terms of development. In many teams, we have more seniors and people who just came off of university, etc. And they learned a lot from the more senior people. How you adapt this method in an environment. So learning, culture and company culture and collaboration, I think key questions to be solved. Yeah.
For us, we're kind of moving, shifting from the pre-pandemic to during the pandemic completely online was kind of a natural transition, to be honest. I just kind of accelerated because we were already in that mode in most of our processes. So, switching when the pandemic happened, when we had to kind of shut down, was probably a week or maybe 7 days that we took to switch on from, to 20% or the 40% online to about 900% online because we had all the tools. From a collaboration standpoint, we have both video calls as well as non-video collaboration tools like Mural you can collaborate on, etc. So that said, we've given the flexibility to the employees, but what we focused on during the pandemic is employee well-being, most important, and eliminated a lot of unnecessary meetings if not needed. Like he said, you eliminate a lot of other discussions, and you can do it via chat or via other collaborative tools, not necessarily be online, not necessarily be there on a video conference. But by telling managers that if a particular process or a country was going through a difficult time during the period, and to reduce the number of meetings and be cognizant of the fact that this particular region needs more time and less meetings and less discussions, that's where we were able to enhance the overall collaboration. So from a collaboration standpoint, it didn't change. In fact, in terms of our services, in terms of our output, actually, in the first few months of the pandemic, it actually it yielded better results for us.
Hi, thanks so much for discussions. I have so many questions, but I try to pick one. So I think the thing that really I find it really interesting is when you guys were talking about what was 10 years ago, how much things changed in 10 years, and what are the predictions for the next 10 years. And that made me thinking 10 years ago, I was hired as, in a shared service center. And I was looking at a career path that went into leadership, which is ultimately what I became a part of. But then back then it was, well, it's funny to say back then, but back then the model was to be good at something, you know, to educate yourself as much as you can, to be the best in the team, and then you move up. Now, and I say that as part of the leadership team of the company that I work for, I see it completely changed. And a lot of people early in their careers just make a lot of changes, which is fine and it's natural. How do you see the challenge this causes for leadership? Because I think there's a hell of a lot of adjustment that needs to be done in leadership perspective to cope with that. You know, what are your thoughts about that?
So maybe a couple of thoughts, because, you know, when I started, it was the same. Get as good as you can, and then you get to a stage where you choose whether to go into leadership or stay on the technical path. Sorry. And I think that actually staying on the technical path, you should basically have just as many opportunities as if you go into leadership. So also in terms of salary. So, you know, this week I've just been doing my merit planning and bonus and promotions for the past year. And, you know, I've got some individual contributors with key technical skills who are being paid more than their boss, but more than their boss's boss, because they're the ones who are bringing the real value to do the work. So maybe the director has the team, but, you know, some of these skills are actually really important. And I think it's important for us as leaders to kind of recognize that the technical path nowadays, because some of the skills are so niche and so high value, needs to be compensated in that way. And I was going to go back to when we had the discussion about moving core services to shared service centers, because one other driver that at least I've had is to spread the risk of these skills. You know, so if you can move some key roles into a shared service center and bring up other people and teach those skills to other people, you actually spread the risk of being over dependent on one person who may actually be the most highly paid person in the team. So there might be a financial benefit as well. So that would be, I don't know if it's kind of answering your question.
A very similar situation that we have in different organizations in the company, yeah, that I'm aware of. So, yeah, thanks. Okay.
The only thing I would add from my perspective is that I think there is, well, it's certainly a challenge for me to understand all those 21, 22 years old guys, what they really want and what they really up for. But what I feel is that if we give them enough challenge and in any specific area, and if you keep the doors open, that you've been joining an AP team, but you want to work in IT, but you might be moving to talent acquisition, you know, I'm happy to do that. And I'm not looking at the degrees, I'm much more looking at the kind of attitude and the willingness of learning. I think we have to be more open than probably I've been experiencing 100 years ago when I was 20 years old.
Thank you very much. We still have a question online. Okay, we will leave it out. Talking about receiving challenge, there are many professional tools that have to really match the real internal profile. Navigate to the company and make a match of their values and expectations. So that have to keep the talent in the company for longer. How much attention I relying on external talent search in the
that's an important aspect of internal career move that we have in our company. I think most companies do, is you're looking at the existing skills and capabilities of a particular individual. And from a data science standpoint, you provide all of these skill sets and the skill matches and the level of these skills to the managers to make that the skill assessment, be it for their promotions, be it for internal career move, as well as for helping them with a learning path for these individuals. And this is where we also use a lot of data scientists to help come up with these metrics on this data of the individuals as far as their skill sets are concerned. So it is definitely being looked at within the organizations for internal career move. And from a skill set standpoint, from an external market standpoint, it's only on a need basis. But specifically talking about IBM at this stage, we have all the capabilities within the organization to provide these kind of skill sets and the metrics and all the data that the managers need to make those decisions within the organization.
Shared service centers, or the tendency is to, is to make the most important decision from the core offices.
The decision makers in shared service centers or the tendency is to make the most important decision from the core office.
My 2 cents on that and what I experienced, and back to Kairo's point as well, that we need to earn a lot as we go through our journey. And this is what I see as well. As we are earning the trust and we are over delivering and the people see, well, that they do what they promise, then there is more and more freedom coming into in terms of decision making. And that's kind of the journey I think we need to go through.
How long is that journey?
Well, we'll see. I'm on the 3rd year. We are not there yet, but it's moving into the right direction.
I mean, you are 150 years now, so how long is that?
Well, for us, like I said, I talk with personal experience here in the last 9 years. I would say strategically decisions are made at a global level. And then passed on to the shared service centers to execute it, or to the respective global process owners who then execute those functions, and we help facilitate those strategic decisions locally. There is definitely room and opportunity for us to then have a discussion, debate, change course if needed. Honestly, but the flexibility is not very big. But there is an opportunity. But from a journey standpoint, I would say just case by case. Some of these cases we're able to win the battle up front, and some you just have to follow it. So it's not one measure for all.
Yeah, we've all got something to say on this. So I would say, yeah, the biggest, most important strategic decisions come from the top, but our approach is, like we were saying about empowerment, is to let the team manage their own destiny. So maybe, they're moved on one direction, heading north, for example, and then they can decide how to get there. They can decide what's the best way. So we want to try and empower the teams to make decisions within themselves. A couple more points, though. I think when we talked earlier about building critical mass, once you have kind of gathered enough power, so to speak, within your shared service center. So once you have critical mass and all the T&E is being done from your team, or all the month-end closing is done by one team, well then, even if the boss is in America or Britain, basically he or she can't do anything without that team. So it's you kind of earn the right to be able to start actually really influencing some of those decisions, and particularly if you start delivering over and above what's expected of you, then you can kind of really leverage the critical mass and influence the more strategic decisions.
There's one thing I wanted to add is so clearly the ultimate strategic decisions will always be made at the corporate headquarters, wherever corporate headquarters is. Yeah. But taking that aside, you know, I do believe that many strategic decisions are actually happening. So if I look at our solution center, we do have people working who are not only regional, but global owners of their area, doing the policies, creating, making decisions on technology strategy, with, you know, enormous budget, etc. Yes, it takes time, and you have to earn it. And as we go up, there is more and more complicated or more and more strategic decisions you take. But we do have example where, you know, big decisions are being made here.
I think with that we can close for today. Very, very much. I really enjoyed the discussion, and I hope the audience colleagues also enjoyed the discussion. So there is still free time to interact.